At my mother-in-law's birthday gala, she threw the gift I gave her into the trash. "Don't bring your cheap trinkets here and embarrass this family," she hissed. I picked my gift back up and walked out. 30 minutes later, the entire party was in chaos. The sound of the emerald bracelet hitting the bottom of a silver ice bucket, repurposed for trash, echoed with chilling finality through the grand ballroom. My mother-in-law's cruel words, my husband's spineless silence, the man I had devoted my life to. 5 years of my youth, spent in dutiful, silent sacrifice, had just been exposed as a cheap, pathetic joke. In that moment, I didn't shed a single tear. I calmly bent down, retrieved my dignity from the garbage, and turned my back on them for good. And exactly 30 minutes later, I made a decision that would change my life forever. Launching a counterattack so swift and decisive, it would leave the entire Peterson family reeling in a state of profound, agonizing regret. The ballroom of one of the most exclusive hotels on the Upper East Side glittered under the light of crystal chandeliers. Warm, golden light cascaded onto tables draped in pristine white silk, where bouquets of imported roses perfumed the air. Tonight was the 60th birthday gala for my mother-in-law, Carol Peterson. She wore a deep crimson velvet gown, a string of large pearls at her throat, and sat enthroned at the center table like a queen, receiving tribute from her court. Surrounding her were the familiar faces of the Peterson clan. From my father-in-law's older brother, Uncle Lawrence, to my mother-in-law's youngest sister, Aunt Heather, everyone was dressed to the nines, their laughter loud and performative. I stood tucked away in a corner, smoothing the lines of my simple, elegant silk dress. In my hand was a dark red velvet box. Inside rested my heart, my soul, and the sweat of the last 6 months. It was a custom-designed bracelet of brilliant emeralds set in white gold. To afford this gift, I had endured countless sleepless nights, secretly taking on small, private residential design projects after the rest of the house was asleep. Since marrying Mark, I had agreed to step back. I shelved my master's degree in architecture from Cornell, graduating summa cum laude, and put aside my dreams of shaping city skylines to become a devoted wife and a dutiful daughter-in-law. I naively believed that if I sacrificed enough, if I was sincere enough, his family would one day see my worth. A round of applause broke my reverie. It was time for the children to present their gifts. Mark's older brother and his wife went first. My sister-in-law, radiant, presented Carol with a dazzling diamond necklace. Carol's eyes lit up. She held the necklace up, admiring it before immediately showing it off to Aunt Heather beside her. A chorus of oohs and ahs filled the air. Mark nudged me in the ribs, whispering for me to go up. I took a deep breath, smiled, and walked toward my mother-in-law, presenting the velvet box with both hands. "Happy birthday, Carol," I said, my voice clear and sincere. "I wish you a year of health and happiness, surrounded by your family. This is a small token from Mark and me. Emeralds are said to have a calming effect, and I hoped it would bring you peace and good rest." Carol glanced at the box, the smile on her face vanishing. She listlessly flipped open the lid. The chandelier light caught the facets of the emeralds, igniting a gentle green fire. But in my mother-in-law's eyes, it was nothing more than junk. She sneered, picking up the $15,000 bracelet with 2 fingers. She dangled it for a moment, before contemptuously dropping it onto the glass tabletop. The sharp clatter made my heart seize. "Where did you buy this little trinket, Eleanor?" Carol's voice was loud, intended for everyone at the surrounding tables to hear. "A stall on Canal Street. This family may not be the Vanderbilts, but we are not so destitute that I have to wear cheap flea market jewelry. Are you trying to humiliate me? To embarrass this family in front of all our friends and relatives?" The party's festive atmosphere froze. The chatter died. Dozens of eyes turned to me, some pitying, some curious, but most filled with smug, cruel amusement. Aunt Heather covered her mouth with a hand, smirking. "What can you expect from someone with her background?" she stage whispered. "Her idea of luxury probably stops at the outlet mall. Don't waste your energy on it, sister." A hot wave of humiliation washed over my face. I turned to Mark, my husband, the man I had loved and served for 5 years. I prayed he would say something, defend me, or at least explain the gift's true value. But he didn't. Mark stared at the floor, deliberately avoiding my pleading gaze. His hands hung limply at his sides, a portrait of cowardly inaction. Seeing her son's passivity, Carol grew bolder. She picked up the emerald bracelet, a precious piece of jewelry worth a small fortune, and tossed it directly into a silver champagne bucket that a waiter had placed nearby to collect trash. The dull clink echoed in the silent room. In that same instant, something inside me shattered. It wasn't a burst of hot anger, but a chilling, crystalline moment of clarity. The dam of my patience had finally broken. I walked calmly to the corner of the room. I reached into the bucket and retrieved the bracelet. I pulled a tissue from my handbag and meticulously wiped away every speck of dirt from the gold and gems. When I was finished, I placed the bracelet carefully inside my bag. I stood up straight, lifted my chin, and looked Carol directly in the eye. "I apologize for ruining your party, Carol," I said. "Clearly, this gift is not worthy of someone of your stature. It is meant only for those who can appreciate the value of sincerity. I'll take my leave now." And with that, I turned and walked away. The rhythmic click of my heels on the marble floor was steady, resolute. Behind me, I could hear Carol's enraged shouting and Mark's weak, belated call of my name, but I didn't look back. The hotel doors opened, and I stepped out into the New York night, leaving behind 5 years of my life buried in the darkness of their contempt. The autumn air on Park Avenue was crisp and cool. For the first time in 5 years, I felt like I could truly breathe. I walked along the sidewalk, under the warm glow of the streetlights, the emerald bracelet a heavy, silent witness, in my purse a testament to, an awakening that was long overdue, but absolutely necessary. I pulled out my phone, 7:30 p.m. It had only been 30 minutes since I'd walked out of that suffocating ballroom. 30 minutes for a woman to realize she had to start her life over from scratch. I opened my contacts, my finger hovering over a name I hadn't called in years. Mr. Harrison, CEO of Vanguard Development. He was my first mentor, the man who had guided me in my first years as a fledgling architect. 3 days ago, he had called me out of the blue. He'd passionately urged me to come back to work, offering me the position of project director for the Hudson River Gateway, a massive, sustainable urban development project. It was a multi-billion-dollar landmark project, one that demanded a visionary architect with a deep understanding of local culture and heritage. At the time, I had turned him down. I'd used the excuse of being busy with family, of planning my mother-in-law's gala, to suppress the burning ambition in my chest. But now, everything had changed. I hit the call button. After 3 rings, a deep, resonant voice answered. "Ellie, I hope you're calling me at this hour with some good news." I smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that dissolved into the night. "Hello, Mr. Harrison. Is that project director position still open? If it is, I'll be in the office tomorrow morning to accept." A hearty laugh boomed from the other end. "I knew you wouldn't be content to stay locked in a kitchen forever, Eleanor. The corner office on the 30th floor has been waiting for you. This project needs a cool head and a warm heart that loves this city's heritage. Welcome back to the race, Ellie." I thanked him and hung up. A powerful surge of energy coursed through me. My mind, which had been dulled for so long, roared back to life. Architectural lines, master plans, urban green spaces, they all danced in my imagination. I was no longer the meek daughter-in-law of the Peterson family. I was Eleanor Vance, an award-winning architect. Next, I opened my LinkedIn app. I found the private alumni group for the Cornell School of Architecture, class of 15. The group was always buzzing with news of bids, projects, and the career advancements of my peers. Mark's younger cousin, Kevin, was in this group. He was also in design, but just a junior draftsman, always boasting and reporting industry gossip back to Carol so she could use it to show off to her relatives. I typed a short, clear, and powerful message. No wasted words. "Hello, everyone. As of tomorrow, I will be officially taking on the role of project director for the Hudson River Gateway development with Vanguard. I look forward to the opportunity to collaborate and connect with my esteemed colleagues in the industry." I hit post. The moment it went live, I switched my phone to airplane mode and put it away. I hailed a taxi crawling along the curb. I gave the driver the address of my daughter Chloe's preschool. It was time to pick up my little girl, to take her back to the small apartment in Brooklyn that was mine, and mine alone, from before my marriage. Tonight, our lives would turn a new page, one that was brilliant and fiercely proud. Meanwhile, back at the opulent hotel on the Upper East Side, a seismic shockwave was about to hit. From what my college best friend later recounted, I can perfectly imagine the tragicomic scene that unfolded for the Peterson family. The gala was still in full swing, filled with the clinking of wine glasses and Carol's self-satisfied laughter. She was busy complaining to Aunt Heather about how unlucky the Petersons were to have ended up with a daughter-in-law with no class and no manners. Mark sat silently beside her, a human shadow, downing glass after glass of wine to numb the guilt gnawing at him. Just then, at a table of younger guests, Kevin's phone buzzed insistently. He opened LinkedIn. His eyes widened at the post in the alumni group. His face went pale. He rubbed his eyes, reading the words on the screen over and over again. Vanguard Development, Project Director, the Hudson River Gateway. He couldn't believe it. Vanguard was a titan in the real estate world. The Peterson family's own business, a mid-sized construction supply company, had been struggling for years, bleeding money. They had been pulling every string, calling in every favor, just to get on the bidding list as a minor subcontractor for a tiny fraction of that very project, and hadn't even gotten a response. Kevin shot up from his chair and ran, phone in hand, to the main table. He was out of breath as he leaned in close to Carol's ear. "Aunt Carol, something huge just happened. Ellie was just appointed project director for Vanguard's Hudson River Gateway project. She just posted it in our alumni group. The entire industry is blowing up congratulating her." Carol was in the middle of spearing a piece of lobster. It fell from her fork with a soft plop onto her plate. Her eyes bulged as she stared at Kevin. "What nonsense are you talking about? That simple girl? What could she possibly do besides cook and clean? She's probably just bitter and spreading rumors to save face." Kevin shoved the phone in front of Carol and Mark. "See for yourself. Mr. Harrison's own executive assistant just confirmed it on a corporate forum. Ellie has full authority over the master plan and selection of all contractors and suppliers for this multi-billion-dollar project. You just threw a gold mine out the door." Kevin's words were like a bucket of ice water thrown in the faces of everyone at the head table. Aunt Heather's face was ashen. Mark's sister-in-law, who had been praised for her diamond necklace, now bit her lip, her eyes filled with envy and disbelief. The entire ballroom erupted in hushed, urgent whispers. The attitude of the relatives shifted 180 degrees. Their scorn and ridicule instantly transformed into blame directed at Carol. Uncle Lawrence slammed his hand on the table. "Carol, what were you thinking? A gift is a gift, a gesture from the heart. How could you throw it in the trash in front of everyone? Now she holds the key to that project, and our chance to get in is gone." Carol sat stunned, her arrogant expression now crumpled with regret and public shame. She stammered, turning to her son. "Mark, call her. Call your wife and tell her to come back right now. Apologize to her. Tell her I'm just an old woman and I was confused. Tell her to bring that bracelet back. I'll wear it right now." Mark fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking as he dialed. But all he heard was the hollow, automated voice telling him the number he was trying to reach was unavailable. At that exact moment, Mark's screen lit up with a new text message. It was from me. "I've taken Chloe to my apartment in Brooklyn. My lawyer will be sending the divorce papers to your office tomorrow. I am petitioning for full custody and retaining the apartment, which is my premarital asset. I will arrange for movers to collect my personal belongings later. Do not try to find me." After reading the message, Mark's entire body slumped, like a tree that had been struck by lightning. The lavish birthday gala had devolved into a chaotic mess, where greed and belated regret mingled into a truly bitter cocktail. That very night, after tucking Chloe into her cozy bed in my old Brooklyn apartment, I decided not to wait until morning. The work couldn't wait. I changed into a sharp slate gray pantsuit, pulled my hair back into a sleek bun, slung my briefcase over my shoulder, and drove my small car straight to Vanguard's headquarters in Midtown Manhattan. It was nearly 11 p.m., but the 30th floor of the glass skyscraper was still brightly lit. People on a major project never distinguish between day and night. I stepped out of the elevator and walked down the plushly carpeted hallway. The faint, familiar scent of brewed coffee hung in the air. This was where I belonged, not in the greasy kitchen of the Peterson house. I knocked on the door of the main conference room. Inside, Mr. Harrison, the chairman, and his executive assistant, Sarah, were bent over the project's site model. Seeing me, Mr. Harrison looked up, a satisfied smile creasing the corners of his eyes. "You're here earlier than I expected, Ellie. I thought you'd come in tomorrow." I pulled out a chair and sat opposite him, my demeanor confident and calm. "Time is money, sir. I've already lost 5 years. I don't intend to waste another second. I want to get up to speed on the Hudson Gateway project immediately." Sarah slid a thick binder toward me with a friendly smile. "Welcome back, Ellie. This contains all the geological surveys and preliminary proposals from the previous teams. The chairman wasn't satisfied with any of them too commercial, too much concrete." I opened the binder, my eyes scanning rapidly over the numbers and architectural drawings. 15 minutes passed in complete silence. I closed the file and looked up at Mr. Harrison and Sarah. "These proposals are all fundamentally flawed," I began, my voice steady. "They're trying to turn this stretch of the Hudson into a miniature Dubai. It would completely destroy the landscape and the soul of New York. My vision is different. I want to build a sustainable urban village with culture at its core. We will preserve the historic riverside hamlets, restoring them as cultural experience centers. The luxury residential towers will be set further back, utilizing green architecture and vertical gardens to soften the concrete masses. Construction materials must prioritize sustainability and local sourcing. I want people who buy a home here to be buying more than just square footage. They'll be buying a lifestyle that honors our heritage." Mr. Harrison's eyes lit up. He slapped the table with his open palm. "Yes, that is exactly what I've been looking for. A project with a human soul." I knew I didn't pick the wrong person. I looked him straight in the eye, my voice firm and clear. "To make this a reality, I have one condition. I need full and absolute authority over the design team. I will personally recruit the best architects, people who understand and love our culture. And I will have veto power over any supplier whose materials do not meet the project's standards, regardless of their connections." Mr. Harrison let out a booming laugh. "The quiet young woman I once knew has become a sharp-witted general. Granted, I give you full authority. Sarah, first thing tomorrow, draft the official appointment letter and delineate Director Vance's executive powers." I smiled, shaking his hand firmly. This handshake marked the official return of Eleanor Vance to the cutthroat world of architecture. As I stepped out of the Vanguard Tower, the city streets were quiet. Standing against the cool night wind, I took a deep, cleansing breath. The real battle had just begun. The next morning, the gentle autumn sunlight streamed through the windows of my Brooklyn apartment, waking Chloe. She stretched and wrapped her arms around my neck, a sleepy smile on her face. We had a simple breakfast of toast and milk, a meal filled with a profound sense of peace. There were no clanking dishes of disapproval, no piercing glares from a resentful mother-in-law. At 8 a.m., just as I was getting ready for work, my phone began vibrating incessantly. Mark's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before slowly answering. His voice on the other end was a mixture of accusation and panic. "Ellie, where were you last night? What was that scene you caused at the party? Mom is so upset her blood pressure is through the roof. You need to bring Chloe and come home right now. Come apologize to Mom, and we can put all this behind us." A bitter smile touched my lips. "Mark, you never change. You always expect me to apologize for the hurt your mother inflicts. Do you know what I was waiting for yesterday, when she threw the gift I bought with my own sweat and tears into the trash? I was waiting for you to stand up and defend your wife. But what did you do? You stood there like a coward. There's nothing left for us to say. The divorce papers are already printed. I'm having them messengered to your office today. Sign them and file them with the court." Mark frantically cut me off. "Ellie, don't be ridiculous. You're a big shot director now. This is a huge opportunity for our family. Mom said she's not angry anymore. She said you should come back, and then you can give our family's company the steel contract for your project. It's a win-win for everyone. Family always comes first, right?" Before I could answer, a video call request popped up. It was from Carol's account. Mark must have been with her. I coldly accepted the call. On the screen, Carol's face appeared, looking haggard and feigning tearfulness. She spoke to me with a syrupy sweetness I hadn't heard in 5 years. "Eleanor, my dear, sweet daughter, I lost my temper yesterday. I'm getting old and forgetful. Please don't hold it against me. We are all so proud of you for becoming a director. About the materials for the project, you should just give the contracts to our family business. We have to keep it in the family, dear. Bring my granddaughter home to me." Looking at that hypocritical face, my contempt reached its peak. I replied in a voice as cold and hard as ice, enunciating every word. "Carol, save your little performance for someone else. For 5 years, you treated me like a servant. Look down on my background. You can keep your family's fortune. The Vanguard project has extremely rigorous standards. A small-time, corner-cutting supply company like yours doesn't stand a chance of even getting through the door. From this moment on, I have no connection to the Peterson family. Do not call me again." I ended the call. Immediately, I went into my settings and blocked Mark's number, Carol's account, and every single number of their relatives I had saved. A simple action, but it brought an overwhelming sense of liberation. I turned to Chloe, who was quietly playing with her blocks on the rug. I walked over, scooped her into my arms, and kissed her forehead. "We're going to be so happy, sweetie," I whispered. "From now on, no one will ever be allowed to hurt us again." I took my daughter's hand and walked out the door. A new day had begun, and the streets were flooded with sunlight. The toxic ties were severed. I had officially shed the humiliating past to walk my own path. No compromise, no regrets. The sun-drenched construction site was waiting for me, where I would build my masterpiece. Late Tuesday afternoon, on the 3rd day since I'd officially started my new role, a brilliant sunset painted orange and gold streaks across the glass facade of the Vanguard Tower. I stood at the large window on the 30th floor, looking down at the bustling traffic on the street below. My mind was busy organizing the geological survey data for the Hudson River bank that the engineering team had just sent over. Everything was moving at a dizzying pace, yet I felt incredibly clear-headed and energized. The pain of my failed marriage seemed to have been crushed under the sheer weight of my workload. Or perhaps it had simply vanished the night I picked my bracelet out of the trash. I gathered my documents, slid my laptop into my bag, and headed down to the lobby. Just as I stepped through the building's revolving doors, I stopped short. Standing under a maple tree, at the edge of the guest parking lot, was Mark. He wore a familiar light blue button-down shirt, but it was wrinkled, and his hair was unkempt. His face was gaunt, his eyes bloodshot, and dark circles betrayed sleepless nights. When he saw me, he quickly dropped the cigarette he was smoking, crushed it under his shoe, and rushed toward me. "Ellie, there you are. I've been waiting for you since this afternoon. The security guards wouldn't let me inside." His voice was hoarse, laced with desperation. I took a step back, maintaining a cool, safe distance. I looked directly into the eyes of the man I once called my husband, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. "What are you doing here, Mark? I made everything clear in my text and in the divorce papers. We will see each other in court, not at my workplace. Go home. Don't disturb me here." Mark reached out to grab my arm, but I quickly sidestepped him. His hand hung awkwardly in the air before falling to his side. "Ellie, I'm sorry," he stammered, his voice trembling. "I am so sorry. The house is so cold and empty without you and Chloe. I'm not used to it. Mom, she regrets it too. She said she was wrong to lose her temper and throw your gift away. Can you forgive her? Can you forgive me, just this once? We've been married for 5 years, we have Chloe. How can you be so cruel as to throw it all away over a moment of anger?" Hearing the word cruel, a bitter smile twisted my lips. I crossed my arms, my gaze sharp as a knife, cutting into his cowardice. "You call me cruel? Mark, do you have any idea what I used to buy that emerald bracelet? Do you know why it was a flawless, custom-cut gem? For 6 months, after you and your entire family were sound asleep, I would quietly get up at midnight. I'd turn on the smallest desk lamp, so the light wouldn't bother you. I took on freelance design work for 15 different townhouses. I stayed up until 3 a.m., my back screaming in pain, my eyes burning from staring at the computer screen for so long. I scrimped and saved every single dollar I earned from that back-breaking work. I didn't even buy myself a new blouse. All of it, just to save up the $15,000 to buy that bracelet for your mother's birthday. I chose emeralds because they're said to have healing, calming properties to help the elderly sleep better and ward off illness. I paused, taking a breath to suppress the wave of past bitterness, then continued, my voice like steel. I offered your mother my sincerity, my respect, and my health, and she threw it in a trash can in front of 100 people who were sneering at me. She trampled all over my dignity. And you, my husband, the man I dedicated myself to, what did you do? You stood there in silence. You were so afraid of upsetting your mother that you let them humiliate your wife. The cruelty isn't in my leaving, Mark. The cruelty was in your cowardice. The cold indifference of your family killed my love for you a long time ago. That party was just the final, merciful cut. Mark stood frozen, as if struck by lightning. His eyes were wide with shock and a dawning, agonizing understanding. It seemed that only now did he truly grasp the value of the discarded gift. Only now did he comprehend the depth of the pain I had endured. He put his hands on his head and sank to one knee on the sidewalk, his voice a desperate groan. I didn't know. I honestly didn't know you worked so hard for it. I thought you just used our savings. I was wrong, Ellie. I'm a terrible person. Hit me, scream at me, do whatever you want, but please, don't leave me. Looking at the broken man at my feet, I felt not a shred of pity. My love and respect for him were gone, replaced by an empty, resolute finality. Get up, Mark. Don't embarrass yourself in public. The divorce papers have been filed with the Brooklyn Family Court. They'll be calling us in for mediation next week. I hope you'll retain what little dignity you have left and sign them so we can end this with a shred of civility. Goodbye. I turned decisively and walked toward the parking garage. I got in my car, started the engine, and merged into the evening rush hour traffic. In my rearview mirror, I saw Mark, still frozen in the same spot, a lonely, pathetic figure. But he was no longer my responsibility. My future was ahead of me, with my daughter and the blueprints that were calling my name. On a crisp Thursday morning, under a clear, cloudless autumn sky, I took 2 hours off from work. Today was my scheduled appearance at the Brooklyn Family Court to finalize the dissolution of my marriage. I chose a simple white silk blouse and black trousers, my hair pulled back in a neat, professional bun. I wanted to face this event with the calmest, most dignified mindset possible, like closing an old book to begin a brand new chapter. The courthouse was on a quiet, tree-lined street. I walked through the dark green iron gates and into the old, stately building. The distinct, musty smell of old paper and bureaucracy filled the air. Mark was already there, sitting slumped on a long wooden bench in the hallway, staring blankly at the tiled floor. He stood up when he saw me, but I just gave a slight, formal nod and walked straight into the mediation room. The mediator was a woman in her 50s, with a kind face and a gentle voice. She looked through the file, glanced at both of us, and began the standard procedure. You're both still very young, and your daughter is at an age where she needs both her parents. The court always hopes for reconciliation. Miss Vance, are you certain you don't want to reconsider, to give Mr. Peterson a chance to make amends? I sat up straight, my hands clasped on the table. I looked directly at the mediator and answered with a firm, unwavering voice. Your Honor, I have thought about this at great length. This decision is not an impulsive one, but the result of a long and painful process. I have come to realize there are irreconcilable differences in our values and our capacity for mutual respect. I am not asking for a division of marital assets. I only wish to retain my apartment in Brooklyn, which was a premarital asset gifted by my parents, and to be granted full physical custody of our daughter, Chloe. I hope the court will respect my wishes and expedite the proceedings so that we can both move on with our lives. The mediator sighed softly and turned to Mark. And you, Mr. Peterson, what is your position on Miss Vance's requests? Mark kept his head down, his hands trembling in his lap. The room was so quiet I could hear his labored breathing. After a long moment of silence, he slowly looked up, the corners of his eyes red. I agree, Your Honor. I agree to let Eleanor have custody. I will pay child support as required. The apartment is hers. I have no claim to it. I respect her decision. Hearing those words, a wave of relief washed over me. The rest of the proceedings were swift. We each signed the mediation agreement and the uncontested divorce decree. As the blue ink from my pen flowed across the page, forming my final signature, an invisible, crushing weight I had carried for years was finally lifted. Stepping out of the courthouse, the bright sunlight made me squint. The air felt unbelievably fresh. Mark followed a few steps behind me. As I reached my car, he called out, "Ellie, take good care of Chloe. Would it be okay if I came to pick her up on weekends, just for a little while?" I turned back, my expression calm. "You are her father, Mark. I would never stand in the way of that. But I expect you to be punctual and to refrain from taking her to your parents' house, where she might be exposed to unnecessary negativity. Goodbye." I got in my car and shut the door. The engine roared to life. As I drove away, I glanced one last time in the rearview mirror. The past was truly and finally closed. Ahead of me was an open road, the billion-dollar riverfront project, and a life of my own making. 3 weeks into my return to the corporate world, the rhythm of work at Vanguard had become intense but stable. That morning, I was leading a critical meeting with the Materials and Procurement Department, debating the choice of natural stone for the Central Cultural Plaza. I was adamant about rejecting cheaper, imported artificial stone, insisting that we source authentic Vermont granite to maintain the integrity of our New England architectural ethos. In the middle of the heated discussion, my phone, sitting on the conference table, vibrated urgently. The screen showed the name of Chloe's preschool teacher, Miss Davis. A sense of unease shot through me. I signaled for my assistant, Sarah, to temporarily take over, and stepped into the hallway. "Miss Vance," Miss Davis's voice was fraught with worry. "Can you please come to the school right away? Chloe has a very high fever, almost 103. She keeps crying for you, and we can't seem to get it down." My heart clenched. The project, the billion-dollar budget, the Vermont granite, it all became meaningless in the face of my daughter's well-being. I immediately went back into the room, announced a family emergency, handed all my files to Sarah, and raced down to the parking garage. The city traffic was light. I pushed the speed limit, arriving at the preschool in 15 minutes. Rushing into the nurse's office, my heart broke at the sight of my little girl lying listlessly on a small cot, her face flushed with fever, a cool compress on her forehead. When she saw me, her tear-filled eyes fluttered open, and she held out her arms. "Mommy, my head hurts. I want to go home with you." I scooped her feverish little body into my arms, tears welling in my own eyes. "I'm here now, sweetie. I'm so sorry. Mommy's taking you home right now." After a quick visit to our pediatrician, who diagnosed a seasonal virus, we went back to our apartment. I carefully gave Chloe a lukewarm bath, fed her a few spoonfuls of chicken broth, and coaxed her to take her medicine. An hour later, she finally drifted off to sleep, her breathing even, her temperature slowly coming down. Only then did I allow myself to sit down beside her bed, massaging the tense muscles in my neck. I picked up my phone, intending to check work emails, but saw dozens of missed calls and junk texts from unknown numbers. Since I'd blocked the Peterson family, they had started using burner phones to harass me. I opened one of the texts at random. "Eleanor, this is Uncle Lawrence. You blocked my other number, so I'm using my security guard's phone. Our family business is in a really tough spot. You're a big director at Vanguard now. Can't you just pull a few strings and give Kevin's division the cement contract? We're all family. Let bygones be bygones. Help the Petersons out this one time, and I'll make Carol come and apologize to you personally." Reading those shameless words made me feel physically ill. Their transactional greed knew no bounds. When I had nothing, they trampled on me. Now that I had power, they were willing to cast aside all dignity, to leech off my success, even dangling a fake apology from my ex-mother-in-law as bait. Without a second thought, I deleted the message and blocked the number. I put my phone on silent. I lay down next to Chloe, wrapping my arm around her small, warm body. The strength I drew from her was my fortress. "My sweet Chloe," I whispered to my sleeping daughter. "From now on, we're going to live a peaceful life. No more criticism, no more hypocrisy surrounding us. I am going to build a new world for you, one that is strong and proud. I promise." Time flew by. The Hudson River Gateway project entered the primary design phase, and our most formidable competitor began to emerge. Vanguard was not the only firm vying for this massive prize. Our most dangerous rival was Croft and Associates, a powerhouse in East Coast construction. On a Monday morning, I was representing Vanguard at a master plan review meeting at the NYC Department of City Planning. In the grand waiting hall, I came face to face with the delegation from Croft and Associates. Leading their team was Julian Croft, their senior design director. Julian was notorious in the industry, an arrogant architect who specialized in flashy, glass and steel commercial megaprojects designed to maximize profit above all else. He wore an expensive designer suit, his hair slicked back, radiating an aura of smug self-importance. Trailing him were a group of younger architects. I paused for a second when I recognized a couple of them, two brilliant former interns I had personally mentored through their thesis projects years ago. They saw me and looked flustered, quickly averting their eyes. Julian noticed my hesitation. He smirked and deliberately stepped into my path, his voice dripping with condescension, loud enough for those around us to hear. "Well, Eleanor Vance, long time no see. I heard you'd retired to the quiet life of a doting housewife. What brings you back to this brutal battlefield? After all those years in the kitchen, I bet your design skills are a little rusty. You'd better not mix up your blueprints with a recipe for pot roast. That could be very dangerous for your investors." A few snickers came from his entourage. My former interns blushed, looking deeply uncomfortable. I stood tall, my gaze sharp, looking directly at Julian's sneering face. I wasn't angry. Instead, I felt a kind of pity for a man who could only measure artistic worth with cheap insults. I smiled calmly. "You're right, Julian," I said, my voice clear and even. "I did spend 5 years taking care of my family. And you know what? Those years in a small kitchen taught me something that architects, who spend all day locked in air-conditioned offices, like you, will never understand: the true value of a home. Great architecture isn't about building soulless, sky-high concrete boxes to count money in. It's about creating spaces where people can breathe, where they can connect with nature and with their heritage." I took a step forward, closing the distance, my presence suddenly commanding. I came back to prove that this piece of the Hudson Riverbank needs a heart that beats in rhythm with our culture, not a cold, unfeeling cash machine. Let's let the blueprints do the talking. I look forward to a fair fight. Julian's expression changed. The smug grin vanished, replaced by a flash of anger. He grunted and gestured for his team to head into the conference room. The battle lines were officially drawn. The storm was coming, but I was at the helm of the Vanguard ship, and I would not let any tempest sink my vision. The confrontation with Julian made one thing clear: Vanguard's current design team, while dedicated, lacked a key second in command. Someone with the technical genius to translate my sweeping vision into rock-solid engineering. I needed someone who understood the complex structural mechanics of building green, heritage-integrated architecture. One name immediately came to mind: David Chen. David was an old colleague from our early days in the industry. He was a rare talent, a brilliant structural engineer who was fiercely principled and uncompromising. He would rather quit a job than sign off on cutting corners with materials or altering a design to save money. He was currently working for Croft and Associates, but I'd heard through the grapevine that he and Julian were constantly at odds. That weekend, I invited David to meet at a quiet coffee shop in a historic brownstone in the West Village. The warm lighting and soft jazz created the perfect atmosphere for a serious conversation. David arrived, looking thinner and more worn out than I remembered. I got straight to the point. "David, I asked you here because I need your help. I'm leading the Hudson River Gateway project for Vanguard. I know things are difficult for you at Croft's firm. Julian doesn't value the principles you stand for. I want to offer you the position of Deputy Design Director to be my right hand on this project." David looked surprised, but also skeptical. "Ellie, I'm thrilled you're back and shining. You have a gift, but Vanguard has a reputation for being commercially driven, for rushing deadlines. Will I just be facing the same pressure to cut costs there? I smiled, my gaze unwavering. This time is different. The chairman has given me complete autonomy. This project is centered on local culture and sustainable architecture. We're preserving historic villages, using green materials. There will be no compromising on quality or structural safety. I need a man of integrity like you to be the guardian of this project's physical form, to ensure these buildings stand for centuries. I slid a folder of my initial concept sketches across the table. Look at this. This isn't just another set of concrete boxes. It's an ecosystem. I have the vision, but I need your pragmatic mind and your genius for structural calculation to make it real. If you say yes, the salary and benefits will be double what you're making now. But more importantly, you'll get to do your job with honor. David picked up the sketches. His eyes scanned the drawings of vertical gardens, of pedestrian-only cobblestone streets winding along the Hudson. The more he looked, the more his eyes lit up with the passion of a true builder who had finally found a worthy challenge. After a long silence, he put the drawings down and broke into a grin. You've convinced me, Ellie. This is a project with a soul. If you have the guts to fight for it, I'm not afraid to walk away from Croft to fight alongside you. I'll give my notice on Monday. I shook his hand firmly. Welcome to the team, David. We're going to make history together. The perfect piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. With David by my side, I felt invincible, ready for whatever dirty tricks Julian Croft was about to throw at us. On Wednesday morning, as David and I were reviewing the foundation pile system for the Riverfront Plaza, Sarah rushed into my office, her usual calm demeanor replaced by panic. Ellie, she said breathlessly, I just got a call from the city's project management office. There's an older woman making a huge scene in the lobby of the Department of Planning. She's claiming to be your mother-in-law and is demanding to see the department head to secure a construction supply contract for her nephew's company. I slammed my pencil down on the blueprint. A surge of rage flared in my chest, but I forced myself to remain calm. I knew exactly who it was. The shameless greed of the Peterson family had officially surpassed my wildest imagination. I asked David to continue the review and told Sarah to call Michael, our firm's chief legal counsel. 15 minutes later, Michael and I arrived at the Department of Planning. From the entrance, I could hear Carol's shrill, familiar voice. She was wearing a loud, floral print dress and stood with her hands on her hips, yelling at the receptionist. Next to her stood Kevin, clutching a thick company portfolio. What kind of service is this? I told you, I am the mother-in-law of Eleanor Vance, the director of the Hudson Gateway Project. My daughter-in-law is in charge. If you won't show me some respect, you'd better show her some. Get your director out here to accept my nephew's bid, or I'll have Eleanor blacklist every single one of you. The staff looked exasperated, trying to explain that all bidding was done through a transparent online portal, but Carol ignored them, continuing her tirade. A crowd was gathering, pointing, and whispering. My name and Vanguard's reputation were being dragged through the mud in a public government building. I walked toward her, the sound of my heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. I stopped directly behind her, my voice cold and clear, resonating through the large hall. You are mistaken. I don't have a mother-in-law. Carol jumped, spinning around. When she saw me, flanked by a stone-faced corporate lawyer, her aggressive posture immediately deflated. Her face went from red to ghostly pale. Kevin tried to hide the portfolio behind his back. Oh, Eleanor dear. Carol forced a sickly sweet smile. I was just trying to help out little Kevin. You know what they say, charity begins at home. Just say a word to these people for me, will you? We can talk about everything else when we get home. I sidestepped her attempt to grab my hand, my eyes like daggers. Let me be clear, Carol. Your son and I are legally divorced. There are no ties between me and the Peterson family. By what right do you come to a public office, impersonating my relative to solicit business? Your actions are not only shameless, but they also constitute defamation against me and damage the reputation of Vanguard Development. I nodded to Michael. He stepped forward, pulling a formal, letter-headed document from his briefcase. His voice was professional and loud enough for everyone to hear. "Ma'am, I am legal counsel for Miss Eleanor Vance. Based on your actions today impersonating a relative and spreading false information for personal gain, we demand that you immediately cease and desist from using our client's name and reputation in any capacity. If you or any member of the Peterson family continue this behavior, we will file a formal lawsuit against you for slander and tortious interference with business. This is your official and final warning." Michael held the letter out to her. Carol was shaking so badly she couldn't take it. Kevin grabbed her arm, stammered a pathetic apology, and practically dragged her out of the building. As they left, a few people in the crowd started to applaud. Standing up to such brazen opportunism was the only way. With that single legal blow, I had slammed the door on the Peterson family for good, sweeping them out of my life forever. After squashing the trouble caused by my ex-family, I focused all my energy on the preliminary design presentation. It was a make-or-break moment. The presentation was held in a VIP hall at a major hotel before an evaluation committee of senior city officials, top urban planning experts, and representatives from major investment funds. The atmosphere was tense. All eyes were on the stage where the two rivals, Vanguard and Croft and Associates, were about to unveil their master strategies. Julian went first. As predicted, he presented a design that reeked of money and ostentatious glamour. The massive LED screen lit up with images of a super metropolis drowning in glass and steel. He pitched a vision of the largest commercial hub on the East Coast, with towers soaring into the sky to maximize retail space. He spoke endlessly about return on investment and the massive profits that would flow to investors. Several committee members nodded, impressed by the dazzling financial projections. When Julian finished to a round of applause, I calmly stood up. I was wearing a simple silk dress in a deep forest green, an outfit that was elegant and understated. I stepped up to the podium and smiled at the committee. I didn't start with numbers. I started with a story. Ladies and gentlemen, I was born and raised in this region. My childhood was filled with afternoons spent along the Hudson River, watching the sun set over the historic clapboard houses, breathing in the smell of the damp earth. Our city is growing, but in our race to become a modern metropolis, we are in danger of losing our most precious asset, our soul. I clicked to the next slide. The screen didn't show cold glass boxes, but a breathtaking watercolor-like landscape. Vanguard's design came to life. Instead of bulldozing the traditional riverside villages, I proposed preserving them, upgrading their infrastructure, and turning them into pedestrian-only zones with artisan workshops and art galleries. The residential towers were set back, designed in cascading tiers like terraced hillsides, their balconies overflowing with native plants, creating massive green lungs for the entire district. I emphasized the use of sustainable and traditional materials, like reclaimed brick and locally sourced granite, combined with modern technology to save energy. Investors won't just be selling square footage, I concluded. We will be selling a lifestyle. The people who move here are seeking peace amidst the city's chaos. They want their children to grow up appreciating craftsmanship and 1,000 years of history. The financial returns may be slower than a purely commercial project, but the value of this real estate will grow exponentially and sustainably for decades to come. The room was silent. The chairman of the committee, a veteran architect with a mane of white hair, took off his glasses, his eyes misty. "A project that touches the heart," he murmured. However, the financial investors expressed concern about the longer ROI timeline. A debate erupted between the two camps, heritage preservation versus commercial development. After 2 hours of closed-door deliberations, the chairman returned with a landmark decision. Both proposals are exceptional in their own right. The committee has decided to give both firms 1 month to finalize their technical designs. We will then hold one final public showdown to select the ultimate winner. I stepped down from the podium, my eyes meeting Julian's fiery, resentful gaze. The final battle would be fierce, but I had absolute faith in the path I had chosen. Amidst the frantic weeks of preparation, I never forgot one crucial date: Chloe's 6th birthday. I left work early, picked up an Elsa-themed cake, and bought a huge bouquet of sunflowers. This year, there was no loud party with dozens of relatives. It was just the two of us in our cozy apartment. I cooked her favorite meal and hung a few pink balloons. Chloe, in a sparkly dress and a paper crown, danced around the living room, her laughter echoing off the walls a priceless happiness. Just as we were about to light the candles, the doorbell rang. It was Mark. He was holding a giant teddy bear and a neatly wrapped gift. He looked neater than the last time I'd seen him, but his eyes were still filled with a deep, sorrowful regret. "It's Chloe's birthday," he said softly. "Can I just see her for a little while?" I nodded and let him in. Chloe ran to him, and he swung her up in his arms, his eyes welling with tears. We sang Happy Birthday together. He gave her a small gold locket and carefully helped her put it on. The dinner was quiet. He tried to bring up old memories, but I gently steered the conversation back to Chloe's school and health. The past was a closed book. When it was time for him to leave, he hesitated at the door. "Ellie, you look tired. The work must be hard. Since you left, I've realized you were the one who held our family together. The house is so empty now. Mom is sick and bitter all the time. We are paying the price for our mistakes. I hope you and Chloe will be happy." I crossed my arms. "Thank you for your concern, Mark. The work is stressful, but I'm doing what I love, and I can hold my head high. I've never felt healthier or happier. As for your family's problems, I'm sorry, but they are no longer my concern. You are welcome to visit Chloe, but please understand our boundaries. We are strangers now who just happen to share a child." He nodded, defeated, and walked away. I closed the door, relieved. I looked at my daughter, asleep on the sofa, clutching her new bear, a peaceful smile on her face. I knew I had made the right choice. The final week of the competition arrived. My team was working around the clock, but the corporate world is never a clean fight. There are always daggers in the dark. One morning, I walked into the office to find a tense atmosphere. Sarah rushed over, holding a tablet. "Ellie, look at this article. Someone is running a smear campaign against us." The headline on a major real estate news site was explosive. "Vanguard's riverfront project at risk of catastrophic collapse? Leaked blueprints reveal faulty foundation design." Below the article were images of our core technical drawings, accompanied by a malicious analysis from an anonymous expert, claiming our innovative foundation design was a fatal flaw that would cause the buildings to sink into the Hudson. The story was going viral. David slammed his fist on the table. "That's an early draft. Version 3. It doesn't include the final reinforcements. Someone on the inside leaked this." It was clear this was a hit job by Julian Croft. Time to destroy our reputation right before the final presentation. "Stay calm, David," I said, my mind racing. "When the enemy throws mud, you use it to build a fortress." I immediately had our IT department trace the server logs. Within hours, they found the culprit. A young graphic designer who had downloaded the old file. Confronted with the evidence, he broke down and confessed. Julian Croft's assistant had offered him a large sum of money and a promotion to leak a flawed design. He was desperate for money to pay for his mother's medical bills. I looked at the terrified young man. "I won't turn you over to the police on one condition," I said, my voice firm. "You will help me expose the people who put you up to this at a press conference tomorrow." "It's time to reclaim your honor," he tearfully agreed. The stage was set for my counterattack. The next afternoon, our company's auditorium was packed with reporters. I stepped up to the podium, poised and confident. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "the rumors circulating about our project's safety are completely false, part of an organized and malicious smear campaign." A reporter immediately challenged me about the leaked blueprints. "An excellent question," I said, signaling for the projector. "That blueprint is indeed ours. It is an early, rejected draft. To speak to the safety of our final design, I would like to welcome Professor Emeritus Mark Adler, the nation's leading expert in structural engineering from Columbia University." Professor Adler took the stage and, with methodical, scientific precision, presented our final, reinforced foundation plans, confirming they were not only perfectly safe but revolutionary in their design. He completely dismantled the fake news story. Once the room was convinced of our technical integrity, I delivered the final blow. "The question remains," I said, my voice turning to steel.